Howdy, partner. Welcome, and I'm going to introduce the book, Bad News for Outlaws, The Remarkable Life of Bass Reeves, Deputy U.S. Marshal, by Vonda Nelson and illustrated by R. Gregory Christie. This book is, I would consider, a biographical nonfiction book. It's a really good read. I believe it's a good read. The subject is not necessarily one that we hear a lot about. We don't necessarily hear about African American U.S. Marshals that are deputy U.S. Marshals that served. But this book kind of goes through the life of one that's not necessarily well known, but has a very remarkable life, as the title says. This book, the author, as she says in the author's note, she's Bass' story is so incredible it comes close to sounding like a tall tale. But it isn't. It's true. And I've done my best to tell it true. And so that kind of describes how the author tried as much as possible to be accurate to his life and to the different records that she looked up. And kind of as an example to continue showing that this is a biographical nonfiction book. She has her bibliography that people can look up the different books, and I did actually look up 2 different articles that she had. Both were, one was on JSTOR, and then the other one was on ProQuest, and I read some of them and I was like, oh, like, she talked about this, this, and this, and this, and it was just everything that she described. Also, in the back of the book, she has a list of words that she uses in the book to kind of help give it the more Western feel, but she describes what they are. She also gives a timeline of his life. She also gives more information that the reader can go look up about U.S. Marshals, and this is remarkable. She gives life examples and more about the different people that he interacted, or this is a specific one that was Judge Isaac C. Parker, and give more information about the Indian Territory, how it was settled, and how it came to be about. She also, with the illustrations, I feel like tries to be as accurate as possible. She even includes a picture of Bass Reeves, which I just really like his mustache. I think it's fantastic. But she tries, again, like I said, she tries to be accurate as possible with the different pictures, and the pictures are actually very entertaining. I really like this one with his if you can see, he actually has holes in his hat, and it was supposed to be part of his disguise in order to catch these different outlaws. I feel like readers would actually really enjoy this book. Maybe some people who may not like Westerns, they may not enjoy this book, but I felt like this book was very informational. The subject, Bass Reeves, is actually very inspiring. He's very straight up. He follows the law. Despite whoever he has to actually capture, he will capture them, and he, as it describes in the book, he would only shoot at last resort. Out of the thousands of men and women that he captured who were outlaws, he only killed 14. And so he would, in the first story that they kind of give like a little flavor of his life as a marshal, talk about this man named Webb who starts shooting at him, and he shoots at Bass 4 times. Once the last time going through his hat and causing a hole in his hat until Reeves actually shot and killed him. And Webb respected him so much that he actually gave him his revolver. And so that's what I just think is remarkable, because as it describes in the book, that oftentimes the marshals weren't necessarily the most respectable men. They were sometimes as bad as outlaws at the time. So kind of more about Bass Reeves. He was actually originally a slave, but eventually his mother actually was very concerned that he would become an outlaw or a thief, because he would sing about outlaws and desperados, and she was like, oh no, where is he going to go? But as it said in the book, she couldn't be more wrong. He became a very good shot, and his master kept him along until one day when they were playing a game of cards, Reeves thrashed him pretty hard, and he had to escape, and he was on the run, and eventually he came into the service of the U.S. became a deputy U.S. Marshal and started capturing the different bad guys. I think some of the stories are very remarkable in the sense that, like, one of the outlaws just turned themselves in because once they knew that Reeves was on their case and had their information and such, they're just like, I'm not gonna worry about it. So I would highly suggest reading this book. This is actually a very interesting book to learn more about that time period before the West became more industrialized. It was already starting to become more industrialized at the time, but it's a very interesting book. It's bad news for Outlaws, and I hope you enjoy. Have a good one.